Hey, so we are going to solve one of the easy problems from Geeks for Geeks, and the problem statement is to find an element in an array where all the left elements within the element that we picked is lesser than the element, and all the right elements in the array are greater than the element that we picked. So, for example, we have an array here 4, 2, 5, and 7. So, in this, if we have picked 5 as the element, all the elements that are on the left side of 5 are lesser than 5 itself, and all the elements that are on the right are greater than 5. So the problem statement in this is to find the element. So in this case we have 5, right? So if we are given with another array, for example here 11, 9, and 12, right? So in this case we don't have an element where all the elements in the array are lesser on the left side and all the elements on the array are greater on the right side. So we've just written -1. But in the previous example, we have 4, 2, 5, 7, right? So if we took 5, all the elements that are on the left are lesser than 5, and all the elements on the right are greater than 5. So the way that we solve this problem is to find all the left max elements for each individual um, numbers here. So for example, here in the case of 4, right? So the leftmost maximum element in 4 is 4 itself. So there's no more elements on the left side of 4. And in the case of 2, we have 4, which is actually greater than 2. So 4 is the leftmost maximum element. And we have 5. So in this case, the leftmost maximum element is again 4 and 7, right? So in the case of 7, we have 5, which is actually greater than 4. So the leftmost element at this position is 5. So we'll find all those elements, and we'll do another iteration from the right hand side. And in this time, we'll try to find the right minimum elements. So initially we have 7, right? So 7 will be just 7 because we have no more elements. And we'll move to 5. Again, in this case 5, the only element that we have so far is 7. So the right minimum element will be 7 as well. And then we move to 2, and we have 5 and 7 to compare. And when we take 5 and 7, the minimum element that we found so far is 5. So we'll enter 5 here, and likewise we'll go to 4, and we have 2, 5, and 7 to compare. So the minimum element amongst 2, 5, and 7 is 2. So we're just going to enter 2 in this case. And once we find all the left max elements and all the right min elements, the only thing that we need to do is do an iteration throughout the array again, and to pick each element, and we'll check if it is actually less greater than the left max and lesser than the right min, right? So if at all there's an element that's actually greater than the left max and lesser than the right min, we've actually found the element. So I'll code this along in Java, and I'll try to explain as we go along, right? So the first thing that we need to do is declare all the variables. So we have left max that we need to find. So it will be an array here. So it's going to be an array of size n, and here, and then we are going to declare another array where we try to find the right min, and so it will be equal to new int of the same size again. And then we are going to declare and initialize the result that we need to return. So I'm going to initialize to -1, because in the case we don't find any such elements in the array, we're going to return -1. So the first iteration that we need to do is from index I is equal to 1. So right before we do that, we need to set the first element in left max. So as I was telling you guys earlier, so the first left max for the first element will be always the first element in the array. So we don't need to iterate to the first element, because we can just directly set it as equal to being the first element in the array that we need to iterate. So I'm going to set that, and then we're going to do an iteration from the first element, not the 0th element, right? And then we're going to iterate till n, and then I plus plus, and we need to set left max of I. And the way that we set left max of I is by comparing both the array and the left max that we've found so far. So math dot maximum element of left max left max that we found so far, and the array element and the previous array element, right? So left max of I minus 1 and array of I minus 1. So this is how we find the left max of the elements that we found that we're iterating so far. And the next iteration that we need to do is for right max. And before we do right max, we are going to set the last element of right max, because we know in this case 7 will not have any other right max element than 7 itself. So we're going to directly set it right now. So array of n minus 1, we got it. Yep. And then we are going to do an iteration from the end of the array. So int I is equal to n minus, should it be minus 1 or minus 2, because we've already picked 7 and 7 is 3, and then we need 2. So in this case we would do n minus 2, right? So yeah, so n minus 2, and I is greater than or equal to 0, and then I minus minus, so iterating from the right hand side. So in this case we are going to set the value for right min. Oops, did I just do right max? Supposed to be right min here as well. Then we set the value of I to the math dot min of the elements that we found out so far. So right min of I plus 1, because we've iterated from the reverse side, right? So it's coming from the back. And then right min of I plus 1 here for the array element as well. So we figured out left max and right max. So we need to do one more iteration through to go through the array. So we are going to do, I don't think we need to do from 0, we can just go from 1, and then it is less than n and I plus plus, and then we need to do a comparison here. So we need to check if the array element at position I is actually lesser than or equal to, wait, so it should be, the leftmost element should be lesser than, right? So it should be the array of I should be greater than or equal to the left max elements, and the array of I should be lesser than or equal to the right min that we found so far. So if we did find an element like that, we should set it to the value of result array of I, and then do a break, because we don't have to iterate any further, and then at the end of the array we could just return the result back. So let's compile and see if it runs. Yep, usually the compilation goes well, but when you actually go ahead and submit it, you'll see a lot of errors. See, we just got an error. I think we don't need to check the last element as well. So yeah, so that was the issue there, because we need to check the first and the last element, because we need to find the mid element, right? So we need to have an element right before the picked element and right after the picked element. So there's no point in iterating from the first and going through the first and the last element. So we've solved this problem. If you have any questions, comment below, I guess. So I'll see you tomorrow for another problem.